I want to be a brother. I want to be a friend. Katt, I want to move on. Can we move on, man? Can we move on?
Katt Williams was able to move on with Kevin Hart, but it's not looking like he's able to do the same with Steve Harvey. A lot of people believe it got a lot to do with how Steve Harvey did Bernie Mac.
I went down to his show when he was taping, and they were saying he wasn't feeling good. And I left there feeling like they're murdering this dude. They're murdering this dude. Like, he had a lung problem, right? And the doctors told him that he just had to take time away from the show and he could come back when he was okay, right? And his contract wouldn't let him.
Oh, yeah.
And they made him work through, like...
No, I don't. Did you get to go to Bernie Mac's funeral?
Steve Harvey was at his funeral, so I wouldn't have been there anyway.
Steve Harvey went to Bernie Mac's funeral, but a lot of people felt like he didn't have no business being there.
Bernie Mac always said he walked alone. I don't think he was walking alone at all. I think Bernie was walking with Jesus the whole time. I just hope Jesus.
They used to let Steve Harvey be the headliner of the Kings of Comedy. They used to let Steve Harvey was the headliner because at the time he was having the most. He was the most famous.
Right.
But he was bombing too many nights coming behind DL, S.A.T, and Bernie. They had to make him the host. But Steve Harvey found a way. Even though he wasn't talented, he still found a way. You gotta have the courage to find Steve Harvey and say, Steve, sir, show me how you did it. Show me how you made it with no talent. Find a talentless comedian who made it and ask him, what do you have to do to get it? Even though I could tell you, it's either kiss ass or boys. Steve Harvey kissed. That's how he got it. Everybody thinks Steve Harvey's some stand-up ass man. No, motherfucker, he kissed the old girl who owned TV One. He used to kiss her. That's how he had the radio show out here.
It seems like everybody got something bad to say about Steve Harvey. Even Samuel L. Jackson had something to say.
I met Bernie years and years ago when I used to have a golf tournament down in Bermuda. And Bernie was the highlight of my comedy give to you. And Bernie, unlike me, I get angry about it.
They sit on the side, ooh, that's funny. Next thing you know, you see it on HBO or something, you be sitting at home, that shit mine, you know? But ain't nobody gonna believe you. First come, first.
Where did I meet you? Tell me first thing I said to you.
I don't know who this is, but I'm gonna marry.
If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview.
Samuel L. Jackson and Katt Williams just torched Marjorie Harvey. And it turns out she wasn't just some quiet wife standing behind her man. Based on these new receipts, Marjorie was apparently the one pulling strings and ruining people's lives. And allegedly, she's the one who turned Steve against the legendary Bernie Mac. But that's not all. According to Steve's ex-wife Mary, Marjorie supposedly convinced Steve to turn his own son against his biological mother, all because she wanted to keep all that Steve Harvey money for herself. And then there is Marjorie's past when she was the wife to two separate lords. And honestly, that's just the beginning. So let's get into why Samuel L. and Katt think she's way more dangerous than she appears.
You always carry yourself like a lady. Being a lady never goes out of style.
All right, let's talk about this Bernie Mac situation first, because if Marjorie really played a role in this, then she's way crazier than we thought. It's no secret Steve and Bernie had tension back in the Kings of Comedy days, but recently, some wild new stories dropped claiming Steve actively tried to ruin Bernie's career and get him blacklisted in Hollywood. And honestly, these stories hit different when you remember Steve cried at Bernie's funeral and still talks about him like they were best friends.
Bernie Mac always said he walked alone. I don't think he was walking alone at all. I think Bernie was walking with Jesus the whole time. I just hope Jesus.
What's also crazy is that Bernie himself literally called Steve out for sabotaging him, and yet Steve somehow managed to sweep it all under the rug. So back in 2003, Bernie sat down with GQ magazine and straight up said Steve was jealous of him and tried to steal multiple movie roles from him, including Ocean's 11. According to that GQ piece, someone from Steve's camp actually called the director Steven Soderbergh and tried to push Steve to get the part instead of Bernie. When GQ asked Bernie how he felt finding that out, he said, "The Hollywood game that we are in, then it's a cold game. And then Bernie said something really interesting about how celebrities in Hollywood get controlled, and he explained why he didn't want to lower himself to that level and get revenge. Bernie said, "When they told me about it, what could I do? I'm not going to sling mud. I'm not a rapper. I tell jokes. I try to make people laugh. I'm not going to sling mud. Steve and anybody else can say whatever they want to say. Ain't nobody got no control over me. I have the control." But Bernie didn't stop there. He also went after Steve's ego, saying, "Go back and look at the Kings of Comedy tapes. Whenever he introduced his buddy, Cedric the Entertainer, it was all about himself. So yeah, I knew about it. Did it piss me off? Nah, you can't piss me off. You ain't that good." After that, Bernie really saw how fake people get when they're chasing fame and success. So he chose to pull back from Hollywood completely. "There wasn't anything for me out there," Bernie told GQ. And then, referring to his wife and daughter, he added, "I had the best right here at home." But see, when Steve got asked later about Bernie's GQ comments, he denied all of it and said he was actually mad at Bernie for saying those things. In 2010, just 2 years after Bernie passed away from pneumonia complications, Steve sat down with Ed Gordon, and when the host brought up Bernie accusing him of trying to steal movie roles, Steve said, "I was upset at first because it just wasn't true. Me and Bernie had a lot of good times together, and then this article in GQ came out and put all this vicious stuff in there." So Steve basically tried to spin it like GQ blew everything out of proportion and took Bernie's words out of context. But here's the thing, GQ quoted Bernie directly, and Bernie would have had to sign off on that interview before it ever saw print. So what Steve was really doing was gaslighting the public and trying to convince everyone his feud with Bernie wasn't a big deal. Except according to multiple people who saw Steve's shady moves up close, it absolutely was that serious. Corey Holcomb, who used to open for Bernie, recently went off on Steve, saying Steve never deserved to be a headliner over Bernie or Cedric, and the only reason he got that spot was because he was allegedly busy sucking up to the right producers.
They used to let Steve Harvey be the headliner of the Kings of Comedy. They used to let Steve Harvey was the headliner because at the time he was having the most. He was the most famous.
Right.
But he was bombing too many nights coming behind DL, S.A.T, and Bernie. They had to make him the host. But Steve Harvey found a way. Even though he wasn't talented, he still found a way. You gotta have the courage to find Steve Harvey and say, "Steve, sir, show me how you did it. Show me how you made it with no talent." Find a talentless comedian who made it and ask him, what do you have to do to get it? Even though I could tell you, it's either kiss or boys. Steve Harvey kissed. That's how he got it. Everybody thinks Steve Harvey some stand-up ass man. No, motherfucker, he kissed the old girl who owned TV One. He used to kiss her. That's how he had the radio show out here.
And it's not just Corey who thinks Steve is a snake who climbed the ladder by throwing people under the bus and kissing the right behinds. Kathy Hughes, the founder of Radio One, the same company that gave Steve his own radio show, went on the record and said Steve is probably one of the most disrespectful, ungrateful individuals she had ever come across in her life. And then you've got Samuel L. Jackson, who was very close to Bernie and also spoke at his funeral. And allegedly, Samuel always believed Steve's wife, Marjorie, was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Samuel L. Jackson know a thing or two about somebody putting a hit out on somebody. He played in Pulp Fiction. It sounded to me like he trying to say that Marjorie Harvey allegedly put a hit out on Bernie Mac so Steve Harvey could get more opportunities in Hollywood.
And that she was the one who convinced Steve he deserved that Ocean's 11 role more than Bernie did. But that's not all. Sources close to Samuel have hinted that he actually tried to warn Steve about Marjorie. See, Samuel has been married to his wife, LaTanya Richardson Jackson, for decades. They met back in college in Atlanta in the late 60s, early 70s, years before Samuel had any fame. And Samuel always believed that's the real reason his marriage worked. He didn't trade his wife in for some younger woman once he made it in Hollywood. He stayed loyal to the one who stayed loyal to him when he had nothing, and Bernie Mac did the exact same thing. He stayed married to the same woman he'd been with long before the fame. Bernie married his high school sweetheart, Rhonda Gore, back in 1977. That's more than 2 decades before he blew up with Kings of Comedy and The Bernie Mac Show. Bernie was a struggling stand-up for years before his big film and TV break in the 1990s, and Rhonda never left his side. died. They stayed married for 31 years, all the way until Bernie passed in 2008. But Steve Harvey, he did the complete opposite. As soon as he got a little clout, he dumped his wife and ran straight to Marjorie. Let me give you the timeline. Steve first met Marjorie back in 1990 at a comedy club, and apparently told her right then and there that he was going to marry her one day.
Kid you not, the first word I ever said to her was, I don't know who you are, but I'm gonna marry you one day.
Now this sounds romantic until you remember Steve was already married to his first wife, Marcia, when he made that promise to Marjorie. But see, Marjorie wasn't interested back then because Steve was still a struggling comic, so she went on to date and marry two kingpins instead. Meanwhile, Steve welcomed 3 kids with Marcia, twin daughters Brandy and Carly, and a son, Broderick. However, Marcia later claimed that Steve cheated on her with multiple women and left her while she was still pregnant with Broderick. So after Steve bounced, Marcia filed for divorce, and she even had to take him to court because he refused to pay alimony and child support. And by that point, Steve had already moved in with Mary Shackelford, the woman who would become his second wife. And it was Mary who ended up spilling the ugly truth about Marjorie to the world. Mary revealed how Marjorie allegedly sabotaged Steve's relationship with his own biological kids while pressuring him to accept her children from her 2 previous relationships. See, Marjorie waited until she was sure Steve would make it in the industry to give him a chance. This happened shortly after she married her second husband, Darnell Woods. But then Darnell got locked up. Marjorie saw Steve was now on TV and no longer a struggling stand-up, and she realized it was the perfect time to reconnect with Steve. There was only one problem. Steve was still married to Mary, and they shared one son, Winton. So allegedly, Marjorie started scheming how to get Mary out of the picture, and she succeeded. Steve dumped Mary, married Marjorie in 2007, and adopted her 3 kids, Morgan, Jason, and Lori. Steve couldn't care less that Mary was there for him during his come-up and helped him launch multiple businesses. The second Marjorie stepped into the picture, he dropped Mary, kicked her out of their house, and left her with absolutely nothing. And Mary later said it was disturbing how fast Steve ditched her for Marjorie.
When I think about how quickly he moved forward from me to Marjorie, that was disturbing.
But what's even more messed up is that Steve took Mary's son Winton from her and allegedly turned him against his own mother. And according to Mary, Steve used his money and celebrity status to manipulate the legal system and win custody of Winton.
He took my Winton from me. He turned my son against me, had me evicted from our house, thrown out. All the businesses, all the money, the cars. At a moment when I was down and devastated, he maneuvered everything. He maneuvered He manipulated the courts, everything against me. He went to court and under oath said that on his own he had built this whole thing by himself. And I just sat at the table and cried. I cried through the whole thing, and I fell apart.
Now, based on Mary's confession, it was Marjorie pulling the strings. Apparently, she's the one who talked Steve into cutting Mary off and turning Winton against her.
I know that as a mother, if I was ever in a position to where I had to be in charge of somebody else's child, I definitely make sure they have a great relationship with that child. But I just don't see how Marjorie, in particular, can call herself a mother to her own children and deliberately try to sabotage my relationship with my son. I don't really get that, because personally, you know, even if it was a vengeance vendetta thing, it's like, who did harm to...
But that's not all. Around the same time Steve dumped Mary and got back with Marjorie, his friendship with Bernie Mac fell apart. And some insiders are saying that this was another one of Marjorie's setups, that she's the one who pushed Steve to go after Bernie. But see, according to Katt Williams, none of this is random. You remember what Katt said on Club Shay Shay, right? That black comedians trying to make it big in Hollywood supposedly have to sign up for the program. And part of that program is a light-skinned wife for Marjorie, like she was nothing. And yet, he's now out here pretending Marjorie was the one riding for him. Steve gets a pass here, and Marjorie did everything. Steve's the one who chose to leave his ex-wife for her and stab Bernie in the back. But you have to ask yourself if that program Katt mentioned is actually a thing, because the pattern keeps showing up.
Man, I just don't know. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this. Is Marjorie Harvey really that bad to where she made everybody hate Steve? Forget Chris Rock, they need to do a Everybody Hates Steve Harvey show, because that's what it sounds like. Me personally, I love Steve Harvey. He's a great motivational speaker. They say he's a big 50 Cent fan. Get rich or die trying. He definitely got rich. He's still living. Rest in peace to Bernie Mac. It's a shame how they did him. Hopefully one day Katt Williams and Steve Harvey will come together the same way Katt and Kevin came together. That would be beautiful to see them hug it out and put an end to all the drama. Shannon Sharpe, you need to set this up, man, because you're responsible for a whole lot of this drama. I mean, the drama been going on before the Shannon Sharpe show, but he really put the nail in the coffin. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this. And one more thing before I go.
Subscribe to my channel if that's what you want, but if that's not what you like, then you must be a punk. Hold on now, here we go. Who is this girl? She got that junk in her trunk. Baby girl, back it up, poke out your rump. It's S.A.T.